We're going to come around the Word. We're opening up the Bible to the book of Daniel. And the title of my message today is Seasons of Prosperity. And my text comes from Daniel. The book of Daniel is a unique book in that it is somewhat a historical narrative, but it is also somewhat a prophetic narrative. So what we're reading from today is the book of Daniel chapter 6 in verse 1. And I'm reading from the New Living Translation. And it goes like this: Darius the Mede decided to divide the kingdom into 120 provinces, the kingdom that being the Persian Empire. The Persian Empire was one of the greatest empires that was known in the world at that time. It was something that came after the Babylonian Empire, but then also before Alexander the Great and the Greek empires that followed, and before the Roman Empire, we had the Persian Empire. So Darius decides to divide his kingdom into 120 provinces, and he appoints a high officer to rule over each province. The king also chose Daniel and two others as administrators to supervise the high officers and protect the king's interests. Daniel soon proved himself more capable than all the other administrators and high officers. Because of Daniel's great ability, the king made plans to place him over the entire empire. Then the other administrators and high officers began searching for some fault in the way that Daniel was handling government affairs. But they couldn't find anything to criticize or condemn. He was faithful, always responsible, and completely trustworthy. So they concluded our only chance of finding grounds for accusing Daniel will be in connection with his rules of his religion. You see, Daniel was someone that grew up in the nation of Judah, in the kingdom of Judah. He grew up in the king's palace. When Nebuchadnezzar, the emperor of Babylon, came and destroyed Jerusalem and destroyed Judah as a nation and as a country, he took Daniel away as a captive back to Babylon. And so Babylon is in modern day Iraq, and Daniel's there and he's a slave. He's taken captive and he works his way up through the ranks, and he ends up surviving the changeover from the Babylonian to the Persian Empire. And he rises up through the ranks and he becomes one of the three most powerful people in the entire empire. He's over everything and he looks after the king's interest, and the king loves him so much that he's considering making him over everything. Now, the other two administrators that are placed in charge of the empire, they're not very happy with this. They're very disturbed. They're upset. They feel threatened. They feel like Daniel is going to take control and take power. So they concoct a plan to be able to bring Daniel down and to be able to take him out. So they come up with this new law that they get King Darius to sign into place. That is that everyone should worship only King Darius. Everyone should only worship the king. So they put this plan into place because the only way that they could find fault in Daniel was because of his religion. And so they put this plan into place, and then they strictly enforce it. So that anyone that was caught not worshipping the king would be executed. Now it goes on to say in verse 10, but when Daniel learned that the law had been signed, he went home and knelt down as usual in his upstairs room with its windows open towards Jerusalem. He prayed 3 times a day, just as he had always done, giving thanks to God. Then the officials went together. They go to Daniel's house and they found him praying and asking for God's help. So the officials, they go, they see Daniel praying. They decide to snitch on him to the king. They run off to the king. You know, who's a parent and has kids in the house, and they know what snitching is like. The youngest one is always coming up. I won't say who it is in our family. But the king, when he hears that someone's disobeyed the law, he's greatly upset, but he's even more upset because he actually really loves Daniel. He likes Daniel. He's honest. He's trustworthy. He can trust him, and he knows that he's a good man. But the king is troubled. He's signed the law into place. He needs to follow through with it. So finally, Daniel is arrested. He's thrown in with the lions. A stone is placed over the entrance. It's sealed with the king's seal. And then the king goes home and he tosses and turns all night. He can't sleep. He can't eat. And then as soon as the sun rises, the king barrels back down to Daniel, who's hiding in the lion's den. And he's anxious and he's eager to see if Daniel's God has been able to pull Daniel through. Verse 19 says, very early in the next morning, the king got up and hurried out to the lion's den. When he got there, he called out in anguish, Daniel, servant of the living God, was your God whom you serve so faithfully able to rescue you from the lions? Daniel answered, long live the king. My God sent his angel to shut the lions' mouths so that they would not hurt me, for I have been found innocent in his sight. And I have not wronged you, your majesty. And the king was overjoyed and ordered that Daniel be lifted from the den. Not a scratch was found on him, for he had trusted God. In verse 28, it goes on to say, and I want you to pay attention to this in verse 28. So Daniel prospered during the reign of Darius and the reign of Cyrus the Persian. Now this story is taking place around 560 BC, about 200 years before Alexander the Great comes through and demolishes the Persian Empire. Daniel is taken away as a captive. He's in a foreign land. He's a stranger. He doesn't belong there. He's a captive. He's a slave. He doesn't know the people. He doesn't know the language. He's away from his family. He's away from everything he knew and everything that is familiar. And Daniel is taken from a place of comfort and placed into a place of slavery and servitude. You know, it's a big thing going to a different culture. You know, I'm very familiar and very comfortable with my culture here in Australia. I love where I live. I know where the local coffee shop is. My family is close by. My friends are close by. My church is close by. You know, I love everything. We went to when we were just married, Sarah and I went on a trip and we went to Paris and the city of love, the city of romance, and as newlyweds do. And then we had kids and decided we couldn't afford to go on any more international holidays. So we went to Paris, spent a couple of weeks in Paris. It was beautiful. It was lovely. But I remember flying in to the airport there, Charles de Gaulle Airport. Francoise, you know it well. And then I caught the train to the Gare du Nord, which is the northern train station. And we had to catch a bus from the train station to our accommodation. But I don't speak French, let alone read French, but I knew the bus number, and I went up to the bus driver and I said, in my broadest Australian accent, because I knew that I didn't want to be mistaken for American, I wanted people to like me. I say that in love. And I said, excuse me, sir, can you tell me where to catch bus number 18, or whatever it was? I can't remember. And this bus driver turns around and looks at me in the best of English, and he says, I'm sorry, I don't speak English. I beg to differ. So Sarah and I walked around for a little bit and we found the bus and we got on the bus. We had all our luggage. We haven't slept for 24 hours and we're on this bus. We don't know, no one speaks the language. No one speaks English. And so we're on the bus. We've got all our luggage on our way to our accommodation and the bus is going and I'm thinking, this isn't going where I thought it was going to go. And everyone's getting off the bus and we get to the end of the bus line and it's literally just me and Sarah and a bunch of luggage on the bus. And I said to Sarah, I know this isn't where we meant to get out. It's a very industrial area. This isn't our accommodation. And the bus driver came up to me and she was talking to me. I don't know what she was saying. I was talking to her. She doesn't know what I was saying. Sarah would say she doesn't know what I'm saying most of the time anyway. So I don't know what luck I had communicating in a different country. Finally, one person got on who could see what was going on and she spoke English. In that moment instantly where you know someone, they speak your language and you feel like, oh man, I feel so relaxed and calm and comfortable right now. Being in a foreign country, being in a foreign place is difficult. We went to a French restaurant. The waiters didn't speak the language. The menu was not in English. And so I recognised a few words. There was a word there that I recognised called bouffe. So I had that. which I thought it was cow in some form, which I'm happy to take, beef. And then Sarah ordered something which we thought was a salad. And so mine came out and it was a beautiful steak. It was fantastic. And ordered A1 great French steak. Sarah's came out, her meal came out. It was a bed of lettuce with 4 pieces of toast, grilled cheese on toast on it. Now, I don't know if this is a traditional French dish, but it wasn't the salad that we were looking for. You know, when you're in a different place, when you're in a different country, sometimes you can feel uncomfortable. You don't know where you are. You don't know who you're going through. But not only was Daniel a stranger in a strange country, but he was a hostage. His home was destroyed. His family was slaughtered. He was forcibly removed from all who knew him and loved him. He was without freedom. He was without agency and surrounded by people that want him dead. In the natural, Daniel was in a season of slavery and bondage, but in reality, he was in a season of prosperity. Because your external situations and circumstances don't dictate the blessing and the favor and the prosperity that is on your life. The storms and the things that are happening around you aren't the things that dictate your prosperity and blessing. Your prosperity and your blessing never came from the storms and the things that were happening. Your employer was never the one that prospered you. Your bank account, your share portfolio, your family, everything that we consider valuable in this world aren't the things that cause you to be prosperous and full of blessing and full of favor. That comes directly from God. It's God who brings the blessing. It's God who brings the increase. It's God who brings the favor. And no matter what season that you find yourself in, you can be prosperous. You can be prosperous in tough seasons. You can be prosperous in good seasons. Because your prosperity isn't dictated by the season that you're in. Your prosperity is dictated by the favor and blessing of heaven. You know, it may seem like your back is against the wall. It may seem like you're being attacked in every area of your life. The devil has come against your finances. The devil has come against your family. The devil has come against your children. The devil has come against your bank account. But I've come to tell you today that the devil may come to you one way, but he will flee 7 ways. You may feel surrounded, you may feel overwhelmed, but there are more for you than that are against you. You may feel lost and alone, but you serve a God who will never leave you or forsake you. You may feel abandoned and without hope, but you have a God who has a plan and a purpose for your life, plans for a future and a hope. Your prosperity, your blessing is not found in the storms in your life, but it's found in God. Daniel was a stranger living in a strange land, a hostage. His home was destroyed. His family was slaughtered. He was forcibly removed from all who know and love him, without freedom, without agency, surrounded by people that wanted him dead, yet he prospered. This morning, I want to look at the life of Daniel, and I want to look at 4 characteristics of Daniel that set him up for prosperity. If you're taking notes today, the first point is that Daniel had integrity. Chapter 6, verse 4, it says, "Then the other administrators and high officers began searching for some fault in the way that Daniel was handling government affairs, but they couldn't find anything to criticize or condemn. He was faithful, always responsible, and completely trustworthy." The enemies of Daniel, they did their best to do a deep dive to find something that they could cancel him on. They went through his Twitter account. They went through everything. They went through his Facebook account, through his MySpace account. You know, they went through his DMs. They went through his group chats. They went through his bank and financial records. There was no hidden credit cards. There was no hidden browser history. There was no hidden secrets that he didn't want anyone else to know. There was nothing in there. So the enemy had no room to attack him on. We need to be a people that choose to walk in integrity. When we choose to walk in integrity, when we choose to live in a way that honors God and honors the call and the mandate that God has placed in our life, it takes away every single attack or avenue that the devil may have to come against you. It removes any way that the devil may come against you. You know, it's a scary proposition, allowing someone to have full access to your life. You know, I feel that every time we have people over for a meal or we have people over to visit. We've got a 2-story house, and we go through the bottom of the house and we mop the floors and we tidy everything up. We dust everything. You know, we do the dishes, put the dishes away, take all the clothes. You know, and people come in and they think that our life, or my life and our house, is just always just kept this way. The secret that you've got, and don't tell anyone, I'm going to tell you, but don't tell anyone else, is don't go upstairs. The beds are a mess. That's where all the clean washing is that hasn't been folded and put away. That's where we put all of the kids' shoes. That's where we dump all the rubbish. But we've got the downstairs area. It's beautiful. It's perfect. That's the bit everyone sees. But don't go upstairs. Don't go upstairs. The downstairs toilet is very clean. Don't go to the upstairs toilet. It's our life sometimes, isn't it? We have areas of our life that are on public display, and we put all of the effort into making sure that area is clean, that our behaviour that is seen is good. But what about the private? What about the bits that we don't see? Sometimes we have 2 stories in our life. The downstairs area is spick and span, it's clean. The downstairs area that everyone sees. What about the upstairs area? What about the bit that no one sees? The thing is, people don't see it, but God sees it. You know who else sees it? The devil sees it. The devil sees, you know, all areas of our life just like God sees them. When we have areas in our life of where there's a lack of integrity, where there's a lack of holiness, where there's a lack of good judgment and good morals, it may be something that no one else sees, but it opens you up for the devil to attack you. It opens your life up. And what it also does is it removes you out from under the hand of blessing. Sometimes we have a Sunday life and we have a Monday life. We have a church life and then we have a family life. We have a church life and a work life. We live one way on a Sunday, we live another way on a Monday. But Daniel made a choice to walk in integrity and holiness in public and in private. When the doors were closed, when no one else was looking, when he faced ridicule, when he faced losing his career, when he faced losing his life, he chose holiness. And when we choose to live as Daniel lived, we choose to walk in prosperity and blessing. Matthew 5, chapter 5, verse 8, God blesses the pure of heart, for they will see God. And you know what it is? It's nothing less, nothing more than good old-fashioned holiness. 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 13, gird up the loins of your mind, prepare your mind, be sober, and rest your hope fully upon the grace that is to be brought to you at the revelation of Jesus Christ, as obedient children, not conforming yourselves to the former lusts as in your ignorance, but as he who has called you is holy, you also be holy in all your conduct. Because it is written, be holy, for I am holy. It's not a popular topic. It's not a popular subject. But if there's anything that the world judges us on, it is our hypocrisy. It's people that choose to live one way on a Sunday, but then choose to live another way on a Monday. For us to be able to walk in the blessing and prosperity and favor of heaven, we need to choose to be people that walk in holiness and integrity. My first car was a 1990 EA Falcon. If you know anything about cars, they are the worst of cars. And I had this car, and it was my first car. I would have been 18 when I bought it. And just like any good 18-year-old, the first thing I did was put brand new rims. I tinted the windows. I got a brand new sound system in there. brand new cassette deck. No, we had CD players back in that day. Brand new speakers and a subwoofer at the back. Got the paint job done nicely. I'd wash that car every single day. You know, that car, I spent so much time making it look pretty. There was a big problem with that car though, and that was that the engine was awful. It would be in the mechanics every week. I remember driving to Streaky Bay, which is an hour away from Ceduna, getting to Streaky Bay, and there was smoke coming out of my engine. You know, where there's smoke's not meant to come from anywhere in your car, but especially not from your engine. So I had this car and I was spending hundreds of dollars doing it up every week, trying to fix it, trying to keep this thing just on the road. But ultimately, I worked out what's the point of having a car that looks very good, although that may have been questionable as well. What's the point of having a beautiful car with brand new rims, a brand new CD player, a good sound system, tinted windows, if the engine and all of its internal working and electronics is shot? The car is nothing but a shell or a husk. It's not useful to anyone unless you want to just sit in and listen to the Pioneer sound system, which you could do inside. It's the same with our lives. You know, our holiness needs to come from within. Jesus tells the Pharisees we need to first clean the inside of the cup, not just the outside of the cup. We need to have a new heart and a new mind, and then right actions will follow. Ezekiel 36:26, he says, I will give you a new heart, put a new spirit in you, and I will take the heart of stone out of your heart of flesh and give you a heart of flesh. 4 characteristics that set Daniel up to prosper. Number 1, he had integrity. Number 2, Daniel prayed. Verse 10, it says, but when Daniel learned that the law had been signed, he went home and knelt down as usual in his upstairs room with his windows open towards Jerusalem, and he prayed 3 times a day, just as he had always done, giving thanks to God. You know, Daniel prioritized prayer. Daniel didn't just pray when the urgency felt him, when the storms were coming against him. He didn't just pray in the good times. He didn't just pray in the bad times. Daniel prayed, and it says here it was his custom to pray 3 times a day. I'm not going to be able to say that we should be praying 3 times a day, but I believe that as Christians, our life is a constant communication between us and our Creator. Prayer is communication with God. It's face-to-face conversation, and we need to build a consistent prayer life, to build intimacy with our Father, to build trust. How can we know God and know His heart and hear His plans if we don't talk to Him? If we don't listen to Him, if we don't hear Him? You know, Jesus frequently went away and spent time with His Father. He frequently went off into the wilderness and spent time with His Father in heaven. Peter was in prayer when he got the vision to go to Cornelius' house. The early church met constantly and devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to prayer. Philippians 4 verse 6, don't be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests known to God. Mark 11:24, therefore I tell you, whatever you ask in prayer, believe that you've received it and it will be yours. Matthew 6 verse 6, but when you pray, go into your room and shut the door and pray to your Father who is in secret. Colossians 4 verse 2, continue steadfastly in prayer, being watchful in it with thanksgiving. You know, prayer builds intimacy, but prayer is also what links your need with God's provision, your lack with God's supply. Sometimes we have issues and we have storms going on in our life. We have lack, we have debt, we have health issues. And we have a God who is the creator of heaven and earth. He is Jehovah Rapha. He is our healer. He is Jehovah Jireh, our provider. We have a God who is all-powerful, all-knowing. We have a lack and we have a need. What we need to do is to be able to communicate that need. Heavenly Father, I need you today. It may just be patience that I need today, or maybe I need you to come through with your miraculous working power and bring healing to my body. Whatever it is, the only way to get what you need is to be able to ask for it in prayer. Daniel was a prayer. I love that when Daniel had an issue, when Daniel felt like his life was in threat, no matter how good his relationship was with his king, he went and he prayed to his Father in heaven. Daniel was a man who prayed. James chapter 4 verse 12, you have not because you ask not. We need to be a people that is willing to bring our requests to heaven and place them at the feet of Jesus. It's only then that God will be able to come and to bring the prosperity, the breakthrough and the blessing. Number 3, 4 characteristics that set Daniel up for prosperity. Number 1, he had integrity. Number 2, he prayed. Number 3, Daniel was faithful. He knelt down as usual and he prayed towards Jerusalem. This is a man that's seen the temple, the place that had God's presence, destroyed. This is a man that's seen people do atrocious things. This is a man who's lost everything. But not only did Daniel continue to pray, but he prayed every day, 3 times a day. He was a man who was faithful. He prayed just as he had always done. He wasn't praying because he was in strife. It wasn't praying because it was what he was needed. It was praying because it was something that he always did. I'm a massive fan of the Adelaide Crows, a big fan. Me and Pastor Rob, we fly the flag together. Is there anyone else here? You love the Adelaide Crows, Brittany? Come on, let's not be timid. Let's not be shy. Come on. Any Crows supporters? Any Crows supporters here? Any Power supporters here? Settle down. Any Collingwood supporters here? Damo. I went to a football game, a SANFL game, maybe 15 years ago on the parade, and it was a Port Adelaide versus Norwood game. And those supporters, they're crazy. They were screaming, they were shouting, they were abusing, they were passionate, they were all in. They knew who the enemy was, the umpires. And that's just the grandmas. Man, Port Adelaide supporters know how to stand by and know how to be faithful. We can be faithful to our football team. I'm a faithful Coles shopper. And Coles continually lets me down every time that they move their aisles around. I faithfully go to the same coffee place, even though they mess it up sometimes. I'm a man, and we can be faithful. We can be faithful. And God is calling for us not to be faithful just to our football team, not just to be faithful to a place of shopping, but He's calling us to be faithful to Him and to His purposes. The difference between someone who walks in prosperity, someone who walks in favour, someone who walks in blessing, is faithfulness. And sometimes you look at someone and you see them and they're walking along and you know their life and you know what's going on in their life and you know beyond a shadow of a doubt that they have no reason to be smiling. You know what's going on. You know their family's falling apart. You know their finances are a mess, but they're still smiling. You see some people and you think, how is this person being blessed? I know who they are. I know the type of personality that they are, but they always seem to be blessed. They always seem to walk in favour. They always seem to have God come through to them. How is it that we see these people? And sometimes you're looking at people and even though they're going through the world's darkest moments and you know what's going on in their life, they're not walking around in depression. They're not walking around in anxiety, but they're walking around full of joy with a smile on their face, with a dance in their step. Sometimes we look at people and even know that we know that they shouldn't be promoted, but they keep on getting promoted. They keep on getting jobs that they shouldn't get. The difference sometimes between success and failure, the difference between prosperity and blessing and lack is faithfulness. And they are people that despite what they feel, they're always praying, despite what the bank says, they're always tithing, despite what is going on in their life, they choose to walk in peace. And it's faithfulness that sets you apart. It's faithfulness that sets you apart from the crowd. When you're willing to do faithfully what others choose to do rarely or never do, that is when you begin to walk in the favor and blessing of heaven. It attracts the attention of heaven and it sets you up to prosper. 4 characteristics that Daniel had set up for prosperity. 1, he had integrity. Secondly, Daniel prayed. Thirdly, he was faithful. And lastly, as the band comes, Daniel had faith. Now the king was overjoyed and ordered that Daniel be lifted from the den. Not a scratch was found on him, for he had trusted in his God. You know, Daniel had a relationship with Darius. Darius trusted him. Darius gave him access. And he could have gone to Darius, but he chose instead to go to God. When he found out the laws that would see him killed for his faith, when he found out about them, he didn't run anywhere else, but he ran to God because Daniel trusted God. I don't know if you know this, but our God is bigger. Our God is stronger. Our God is mightier. Our God is above the heavens and the earth. He is the Alpha and Omega. He knows the beginning from the end. He is Jehovah Jireh, your provider. He is Jehovah Nissi, your banner. He is Jehovah Rapha, your healer. He is El Elyon. He is Yahweh. He is God in the storm. He is God in the good times. He's God in the bad times. And Darius was Daniel's employer. Darius was Daniel's king. There may have been somewhat of a friendly, familial relationship as well between Daniel and Darius. We just don't know. But Daniel didn't run to his employer. He didn't run to his friends. He didn't run to the king, the emperor, but he ran to God. And the intersecting point between God's power, God's provision, and all-powerful and all-knowing, a God who is omnipotent, omnipresent, the God of heaven and earth. The intersecting point between this God and our miracle and our need, the thing that you need in your life, whatever it is, it may be health, it may be financial, it may be relational, it may be something to do with your career, whatever the need is, the intersecting point between the power, the prosperity, the blessing, and everything that God has, the intersecting point between our need and that is faith. And faith says that even though my circumstances aren't what I thought they would be, even though the enemy is attacking from all sides, faith says that even though my bank account says one thing, I know that God is my provider. Faith says that even though the doctor's report says one thing, I know that God is my healer. Faith says that no matter what comes my way, no matter what report I receive, no matter what my friends say, no matter what I hear, no matter what I watch on the news, no matter what I read about in the newspaper, faith says that no matter what it is, my God is bigger, my God is stronger, my God is mightier. Come on, if you believe it this morning, why don't you give God a shout of praise? Whatever it is that you're going through, whatever the storm that is going on in your life, God is bigger, God is stronger. He has the answer that you need, and the gap between your need and God's provision, His prosperity and blessing is faith. Just like Daniel, I will choose to place my faith in my Creator in the good times and the bad times. I will place my faith in my healer, whether it's a good report or a bad report. I will place my faith in my provider, no matter the cost of petrol or what the world tells me about a cost of living crisis. How can Christians continue to walk in favor and blessing, be looking at buying houses, be looking at expanding things? How can a church continue to look at expanding into another building and building a purpose-built kids facility? How can a church do that? Because we have faith. The intersecting point between your need, between the church's need, between everything that we need is faith. Without faith, it is impossible to please God. And this morning, you may be walking through a storm. You may be walking through a season of hardship. If there's anything that I've come to tell you today, it's that God is faithful. God is your healer. God is your provider. And that He will meet you at your need.